We're going to get going. It's 4 o'clock. All for comment. It's the second town hall meeting. Hopefully, everyone knows that we're here to discuss the renovation of the clubhouse, and I'm going to basically turn it over to Richard, who's the chairman of the Long Range Planning Commission that's been driving this effort for the club. So, Richard, go ahead.
Thanks, Tom. Welcome, everybody. Before I get into the main talk here today, I want to tell you that a video of today's event will go on the website after the meeting. Also, the slideshow will go on the website, and a copy of the talk will go on the website as well as being mailed out by email. Before I again begin to speak about the main issue, I want to read out loud here, bear with me for a moment, all the people on the Long Range Planning Committee and some special advisors that were appointed to help us. So myself, Richard Bucari, Terry Weber, Wally Van Dyke, Mike G, Mike Powell, Ray Hewitt, Jim Myers, Donna Grabner, Shelley Keane, Fred Zaharoff are all on the committee as of this year. Many of those were on last year's committee as well. Special advisors, Gary Schuler, Dale Weber, Harry Durbin, Jack Mahar, Greg Thornstrom, and Bob Conant. Thank you very much to all of those people, and as another special advisor that's helped us out all along the way is Tony Woodridge. All of those people have put a lot of effort into this. We've had a lot of meetings, some by telephone, some by lots by personal meetings here in the clubhouse. So I wanted to make sure that you all knew who those people were, and to give them a vote of thanks for the efforts they put into this. Thank you. Following today's talk, we will wait about 2 weeks before we mail out the vote. The reason for that is if there's any ideas that come out of this meeting today, we'd like to be able to incorporate those and send it out. So then after it's mailed out, you have 30 days to cast your vote. Okay, so without further ado, forgive me if I read from this because it's a little bit long, and this is going to take a while, but I think it's really important that you hear everything that I have to say, or we have to say, and all the processes that we've gone through. The Long Range Planning Committee from last year, 2014, inherited a list of priorities set by previous committees. The list included a renovation to our clubhouse kitchen and the requirement for a new guardhouse at our entrance. However, it soon became evident that the clubhouse had a number of major repair issues. The roof has rotting wood, needs replacement. Some mechanical components are reaching the end of their life cycle. Windows are not hurricane glass, and much, much more. At this point, 2 separate teams of engineers and architects were asked to review the condition of this current structure. In both cases, the 2 teams independently felt that we should not renovate the current building. In order to examine the implications of these 2 reports, the committee determined that we needed evidence of what were the issues and a cost summary of what was needed to bring the current building up to code. That review would also include the kitchen renovation and some space reallocation. A project management firm, Owens, Ames and Kimball, OAK, you'll hear me refer to that, were asked to outline the issues and provide a quote to meet our needs. The result was an estimated cost of about $1.7 million. You're going to see a couple of different options there, 1.5 to 1.7 to 1.9, depending on what we do exactly, if we renovated this building. This information was presented at the November Town Hall meeting. I want to thank Mike G for standing in for me as my wife and I had to stay and attend our youngest son's wedding. So we will be calling upon the team of professionals from OAK to help us out through this meeting. Okay, so can you now show the slideshow of the condition report of the current structure? These are the things that were discovered. some of them. Do you want to talk to this at all, Howard?
I'm Howard Gold from O&M's Kimball. For those of you that were at the November meeting, some of this will be repetitious. As we get to the end of it, there is some new information. We broke the existing building into 10 components: structural, mechanical, plumbing, windows and storefront, building code compliance, roof, electrical, fire suppression, Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA compliance, and utility services. And you'll see some pictures and some reports of each. Up on the roof, there clearly are some signs of deterioration. The clear story right here above us, rotting wood timbers up there. The structural concrete has some cracks in the wood beams as well. It's an opportunity for rain intrusion, which of course causes the growth of mold and mildew over the hot, wet summers here, and structural weaknesses. On the roof where you see the discoloration and ponding, as water gets into the plywood, it starts to sag when it becomes a bowl, and then more and more water sits on top of it, weakening it. I can tell you it's really not very safe walking around up on the roof here. Over the years, there have been a series of partial roof patches. You can go on to the next one, Jeanette. We refer to them as flat roofs. They really are slightly sloped, low slope, and but there is ponding. Water is not running off the roof as it should, and the panelized roof over the screen enclosure and back is in really very poor shape, as you can see. As you walk through this building in particular over the summer, you see a lot of stains on the ceiling tiles, which is a visible sign that the water is getting into the building and deteriorating the structure, and it shows itself as really just a stain on the ceiling tile. Also on the roof, all the HVAC, it's heating, ventilation, and air conditioning equipment. It's beyond its expected service life. It's not anchored to the roof per hurricane codes, and the kitchen ventilation units and refrigerant lines are not sealed. There are 5 HVAC units here. They all use the old discontinued refrigerant gas, and all of those would be extremely expensive repairs to make over the next few years. Kind of get into the electrical system a little bit. Over the years, some work's been done, as I understand, by volunteers. It's kind of been band-aided. There is some water intrusion. Panels appear to all be full, which means the entire electrical system is at its full capacity, which is a dangerous condition. We really just sort of opened panels and took these pictures, and that was about a year ago when we did that. In the kitchen itself, which as I understand, it's been expanded over the years, over the grease trap. The grease trap is really an interceptor on the sewer line, so that the grease doesn't go into the county sewer system. It should be outside so it can be cleaned out, and being inside the building is a serious fire hazard, as well as having to be serviced and cleaned out through the kitchen is not a particularly healthy situation. The fire sprinklers, any renovation to the building would require that it be fully sprinklered. The kitchen's fire suppression system has kind of been piecemealed together over the years. There is no firewall separations, which if a fire were to break out would make it very difficult to contain the fire into one room before the fire department garage. All of the windows that you see up above, the sliders, the openings, the windows were put in before the codes changed a few years ago with Hurricanes Charlie and Wilma. All new construction now has to meet 130 mile an hour wind codes, which is the impact glass. It's double pane glass and will resist flying objects that hit it. The ADA compliance, we do have to add handicap spaces and ramps. It does appear that some work was done in the bathrooms a few years ago. Some efforts have been made to be compliant in there. One of the things that Lee County does is to avoid piecemeal renovations and work is what they refer to as the 50% rule. Any renovation that exceeds 50% of the value of the building requires that the entire structure be brought up to code, and that's a cumulative number. So you couldn't do, for example, 100,000 this year, 100,000 the next, 100,000 the next. At some point you hit that magic figure and the county says no more until you bring the whole building up to code. And it's their way of really getting the entire county up to code. The building is insured for $850,000, so 425 would be that cumulative 50% number. And as I said, from looking at those pictures and the equipment, you would hit that number extremely fast. We've checked with FP&L. You do have 120, 240 volt, three-phase service, which we believe is well served to power a larger building. You'll see in our floor plan later, we are pushing the pro shop out a little bit to the east. The FP&L transformer that's out there would be relocated just to the east of the first tee. We've run pressure tests on the water, the fire hydrant right out in front, and there is adequate pressure for our sprinkler system coming off the main there on trail winds. I believe, Richard, before we get into looking at any plans, you wanted to do a little question and answer session at this point?
Yeah, if you could ask any questions you have about what we've heard so far, this would be a good time to ask, and then we'll present where we went from this point, and then we'll ask for some more questions at the end. Are there any questions so far about what you've seen and heard? Fred?
I'm President Harrell. Will besides the window being hurricane proof, how strong is the building?
Well,
I don't know.
That's kind of the million-dollar question. Nobody really can answer that. We've fortunately not had a hurricane for about 10 years since that year with Charlie and then Wilma the next year. I can tell you we were doing a lot of work for the Charlotte County school system. We built an elementary school. It opened about a year before Charlie with all the impact glass and everything. It stood up extremely well. In fact, they used that building for double shifting schools. And then once they got their insurance and FEMA money, we ended up building that same school in 5 more locations in Charlotte County. So, as for when and how much damage, nobody knows that, but in my opinion, this building would not withstand a direct hit.
Okay, Jerry, go ahead.
It's still here.
To what extent is the fire alarm system, is it going to involve smoke detectors, obviously some pull stations, deluge system in the kitchen, etc.? It
really is a combination of all of those things. The sprinkler system, would be in all the assembly areas and really, matter of fact, in the cart barn and really in the entire structure. Fire alarm is typically done by zones. I would think 6 to 8 zones in a building this size. You would have the pull stations at the doors, some sort of horn and strobe light for people that are blind or hard of hearing. There's a whole book on the life safety code that we would have to comply with, and you submit that to the county. They review it, and they also send it out to the local fire district. They review it, and then the plans are approved, and then the inspection process is done by the fire marshal over the course of the construction period.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I have one question. When you said that the OK, okay, you said the OAK did analysis, and they recommended that not to renovate. What's the $1.7 million? Is that the cost of bringing up the code?
Yes, I think we have some slides with options.
Because they recommended not to renovate because of the 50/50 rule. Is that pretty much?
Well, we're going to address that as we come up.
We did try to look at 3 options just to kind of give the long-range planning committee people some ballpark figures. Option 1 was literally nothing more than take the existing building here, the existing slab and walls, do a code compliance upgrade that did not address any of the operational or functionality issues or the size factor, but literally just, here's what the county and the fire department is requiring, and here's what it would take. That was approximately $1.5 million. We looked at a second option, understanding that you've outgrown this facility to some extent. We took one function that we thought could be located in a separate building, so we took the cart barn, so we're going to build a new cart barn in some remote location, leave the 4 walls, bring it up to code, and let internally the functions expand into that space. It's now the cart barn. That was about $2 million. And then the third option was a tear down and a reconstruction of a new approximately 12,000 square foot building on this same site. And I think we're going to get into the cost of that in a few minutes. It was about $3.5 million.
Yeah, actually it's 14,000, but okay, so at this point, the committee now had the hard data of renovation costs and could confirm that it may not be feasible to renovate the current building. We would spend a lot of money on an old building and end up with a remodeled but undersized kitchen, an undersized cart barn, an undersized dining and sports bar. And the committee felt that to report to the owners with only this renovation solution, the ones you've seen here, was not reasonable or responsible. Remember that 2 separate professional firms did not think it was an effective long-term plan. The next step. Management staff were consulted to help define our needs. I'm talking about the Hideaway management staff. We talked to the chef, we talked to the office manager, we talked to the pro, and others on staff. OAK was asked to examine how much of a footprint was available. Where could we stretch to? Where could we round out things? How much footprint could we get on this current location? how much parking would be required to meet the new code. Okay, the Florida code requires that you park X number of cars for each hole of golf that you have on your golf course. And they do not listen to any argument about the fact that we drive our golf carts here, not our automobiles. There is a 10% variance that you can get with a simple application. Any other argument to that would require a long, drawn-out, expensive, lawyer-driven argument. And they have never granted one to date. There were literally more than 100 other requirements that were examined to meet codes, county applications, permits, mechanical services, other services, drainage, etc., all with a view toward building a new clubhouse. The committee met frequently throughout last winter, and over the summer, committee members that reside here met while other committee members joined in via telephone. Tom Dudas was also involved in telephone phone calls from up north. Throughout the last few months, more meetings have taken place, culminating in this town hall meeting. We considered many options. New land development at the end of the road was considered but rejected for the following reasons. There are a number of other reasons, but these are the most important ones. Requirement to remove all non-native vegetation. These are code requirements. Requirement to include a water management reserve along with landfill and identified drainage. Barrier construction from traffic road construction and service infrastructure. In other words, we'd have to extend the road, do blacktop, do plumbing, do electrical, all that stuff, and build a big barrier wall all along that strip of property between the property's edge and the roadway beyond. Another of implications concerning the interface of golf operations and clubhouse operations were also a factor. Now, does it mean we've abandoned that property down there? No, it doesn't. But we have abandoned it from the point of view of building a clubhouse down there. I think the long-range planning committee will look at, in the future, having a golf cart storage down there and a driving range. And I'll talk more to that issue as we go along. Two-story construction. Many people approached us, maybe 20, have approached us, and I'm sure there's a lot more. But a few owners have expressed their desire for a new two-story clubhouse versus a single level. And many people have made the statement that it's more cost-effective to build 2 stories because you only have one roof. But you've forgotten, those people have forgotten that that's a residential factor. For commercial, to hold 200 people up there dancing and jumping about requires a whole lot of steel infrastructure down below. We also talked about the requirement for a grand staircase that would go from the bottom level to the upper level, 2 exterior fire staircases, and an interior elevator with a maintenance contract. The cost, minimal cost to add a second story would be an additional $300,000 to $400,000. The committee was also concerned that for large events, there would be a backup at the elevator. We have a fair number of people who would not be able to go up and down the grand staircase, and so there would be a backup at the elevator, particularly when we're leaving a large function at the end of the night or the end of the day. Some fundamental concerns were also expressed about food and bar service being only available on the upper level, and if you wanted to have it on the lower level as well, then how do you get the food up and down? Dumb waiters running up and down, and getting cold food at the bottom. So we thought about all that stuff and decided that 2-story construction was not something we were prepared to recommend. quantity and quality. Over the past many years, over this past year, many owners have approached the committee either at meetings or by personal contact. We have been open to all input and have sincerely considered dozens and dozens of suggestions, particularly in the most recent weeks. In our deliberations, we have considered everything from a Cadillac upscale clubhouse to something more modest. And we felt that a serviceable Chevrolet, well-built with quality material, will meet the future needs of the Hideaway. At this time, I wonder if we can display the floor plan. Okay, now, the floor plan. The floor plan is flexible. We're still open to changes there. That can change to anything. All of this stuff in here is just our architect's best idea and how we can flow people in and out, how we can feed people, how we can provide service at a bar. But what can't change is the outside footprint. We are at the maximum that we are allowed to put here with the proper setbacks from the water and not infringing on the golf course or the tennis courts. These numbers here, this is a divider across here, which is a multi-purpose room for meetings, and can be opened up to face the dance floor, and there's 40 additional seats in there. This 60 and 20 would be on this side, on the right-hand side of this yellow line here, which is also a folding partition. And if anybody's been out at Country Creek, you can see a really good example of how well this works and how attractive it looks. Out here, with that wall in place, you can still have your sports bar. You come in here, you can enter it from back here as well. And there's 48, 18 around the bar and 12 up there. That's, as I said, a concept plan. That drawing has been passed around, and at the end of the meeting, I'll open up the discussion again. And if there's any really good points to be made on how this could be improved or changed that meets our needs, we'll certainly consider all of that. Costs to date. By the end of today, we will have spent approximately $45,000. These costs are all for professional management, engineering, and architectural input. Part of these costs included a review of our current structure and what it would take to renovate, while the remaining costs are related to the development of the floor plan and the elevation plans you saw today. Regardless of the outcome of the vote, we have learned a lot about our current structure, and more importantly, we have identified and quantified and outlined what we need for the future. All this information will be put to good use at some point in the future. If this vote fails, and I hope it doesn't, but if it does, we haven't wasted any money here, folks. The square footage, by the way, here is 14,000. That's about 30% more than you have currently. So, in summary, the Long Range Planning Committee has spent many hours in meetings, phone calls, read and replied to hundreds of emails. We unanimously feel that the recommendation to construct a new single-story, well-designed clubhouse in the current location is our best solution. If the owners approve, construction would begin in April 2016 and expected to be completed by December 31st, 2016. Can you display the schedule now? I know that's difficult to read. It looked okay on a piece of paper, but it's pretty tough up here. But basically, the 1st of April, we would start raising this current building, and our experts tell us that on the 31st of December, we should be able to have a grand opening, or maybe the 1st of January the next day or something. 2016 we're talking about, so we will have finish paying for the golf course renovations before we start this and before there's more payments to be made. So the estimated cost for a new building will be $3.5 million. Now, the Finance Committee have indicated that depending on interest rates and length of amortization, this means an increase in our annual POA fee of, and it depends on how we express this. Can you put that, yeah, there you go. So, on top of what you're paying now for the golf course, it would be an additional $75 to maybe as high as, we're guessing at $200. But expressed in terms of total dollars, if you finish paying for the golf course and you go, you don't have to pay for that anymore, the new costs would be $450 a year per door to a maximum of $600. Now, we don't think it's going to get to the $600, but we are going to include that in the vote because we don't want to reach $505 and not be able to finish the clubhouse because we didn't get enough authority in the vote. So you're going to see quite a range there. Our best guess is that it probably cost about, in addition to what you paid over the last 4 years and 2 more years to pay for the golf course, the average of that is $375 a year. So in addition to that, another $75, we might get to $100. That's our best guess. I can't guarantee anything because we don't know what interest rates are going to do and we don't know what construction costs are going to do. So that's why there's a range in there bringing you all the way up to $600 per door. Let's see what else. We would also like to report that we've not lost sight of the need for a new guardhouse. Can you put that up, please? And feel that we may wish to have it constructed in conjunction with the clubhouse if approved. Hopefully the guardhouse can be funded from within current reserves. So that's an elevation view and the inside view of a basic club gatehouse construction.
Rich, you got numbers up there now that the width of that is about 17 feet 4 inches and the length is what, 25.4?
Yes, 25.4, 17.4.
What's the existing?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, the question is, what were the numbers up here? What were the measurements? So it's 17.4 across and 25.4 that way. The existing is smaller than that. I don't really have the existing number, but we're adding a washroom to this and a little bit more counter space and a little bit of storage space for their files. Okay, so last but not least, before we open it up to questions, what happens in the event of a no vote? And what we need for a vote, folks, is half of all owners plus 1 to vote to have this passed. If we don't get that vote, what happens? The Long Range Planning Committee cannot find any justification for recommending that the Board of Directors continue to pour repair money into the current structure. A kitchen renovation, new windows, a new roof, some new mechanical components, and many other items are all due for some measure of repair or replacement. The accumulated cost of these items will add up. In very short order, we will be advised by the authorities we have to require a full code upgrade to the building. To invest large sums that will be raised by a special assessment, increased fees, or short-term loans to our current 30-year-old building, we do not consider feasible. Indeed, we feel it would be a very bad investment. That sounds like a pressure tactic. I have no axe to grind here. I don't like spending money. I like to keep it in my pocket, spend it on more fun things on a daily basis. Nobody in the committee had an agenda. We're presenting the facts and our best recommendation. We believe that a new clubhouse will add some value to the Hideaway, while continuing to repair our old clubhouse will simply cost us more without any offsetting increase in property value. Now, my final statement, proxy forms will be mailed out within the next few days, maybe up to 2 weeks from now. Please join the Long Range Planning Committee on this exciting venture and vote for a new clubhouse. Thank you. I'd like to now open it up to any comments. Lady over in the corner here, please.
My question, we just purchased a condo last year.
Sorry, can I just pass you this mic so everybody can hear you?
We just purchased our condo last year, so as far as I know, we aren't paying for the golf course? We are. Awesome.
Good question.
Are they still talking about doing this like over 20 years? Is that wasn't brought out? I just wondered.
Thank you. The amortization of the loan would be a 20-year period. And what that avoids, of course, is special assessment or upfront payment. If you're 90 years old, you may not want to put all your money in upfront, i.e. special assessments. So when you make a loan, you sell your unit, the buyer gets responsibility of paying, just like this lady back here, making payments towards the new clubhouse. So it's pay-as-you-go process, and that was our best.
I was going to wait till the end, finances, but brought up now. As one of the middle-aged people here, I can feel for the people that are 90 years old and don't want to put up the $7,000. However, back when I was younger, I don't want to pay $1.5 million in interest. And people who are coming here to buy that haven't been here, like this woman here, who doesn't even know that she's paying it, didn't even get a say in the clubhouse, are paying $1.5 million over 20 years. I can think of something much better to do with $1.5 million. I think the finance committee, the POA, whoever wants to get on something needs to go get more creative financing, take out a 5-year loan, have anybody who wants to pay up front with no interest pay it up, somebody who wants a 2-year loan, a 5-year loan, and a 10-year loan. I don't want to hurt the people on fixed incomes, but going out 20 years is absolutely ridiculous in my mind, and when you sell your unit, that money should be upfront, not passed on to new owners who don't even know that they're paying $3,000 extra in interest.
Okay, there are a couple of good points made there. It isn't long-range planning committee that will determine how this is financed. That's between the budget and the board. However, that was our recommendation. How it actually gets financed and paid for is a decision made outside of our committee. However, keep in mind that interest rates currently are as good as they're ever going to get, probably. And paying up front is painful to a lot of people. So this was our recommendation, but again, we don't decide how it gets paid for. So can you run a mic back to that gentleman back there, Sean? Do you still have it? Here it is. Here.
Raise your hand, who wants the microphone?
My question to the long-range committee, the amount of money that you have quoted for the building, is that the shell? And how about everything that goes inside? Is that included in the cost?
Yes.
Or is that going to be an additional cost for tables, chairs, desks, kitchen equipment, everything else?
No, everything is included. There are costs identified for all the kitchen equipment and furniture in here.
I see, okay. And the same goes for the pro shop and
That's right.
the barn and everything else, right?
It's a turnkey solution.
I see, okay. Thank you.
Richard, can you include a new sound system?
Yeah, if we build a new clubhouse, it will definitely have a new sound and PA system. It'll be number 1 on the list. Are there more questions?
Richard.
Sorry.
Richard. Back here, way back here.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, John.
My question is, who has been able, or have they had meetings with financial institutions to verify this 20-year? I have spent a little bit of time in the last few weeks talking to some financial institutions, and the feeling I get is 10 years is about all you can expect. Have we got a feeling for...
Yeah, I'll pass that to Tom Dudas, he's been dealing with the bank.
John, our current loan provider, which is still, is more than happy to do a 20-year amortization for us. The other point I want to make real quick with regards to Pat's point is we can finance this thing or fund it any way we want, but whatever we do has to be the same for every owner. So, you know, I can't pay for 5 years. And Richard pay everything up front, and John for 15 years. Whatever we do has to be the same across the board.
I called 6 condos who are doing the same thing we did, and every one of them had choices. We are the only one that are not giving choices to our owners, and they only went out 10 years.
Okay, what was said there was that other condos have been consulted and they have flexibility in payment. Again, the Long Range Planning Committee have not been involved in this aspect. We spoke to the Finance Committee and the board, and we got the information that we can do the 20-year amortization. So that's what we rode with. Again, once you vote, how it's financed can be changed. I think that when we mail out the documents, though, it probably has to be clear so that you know what you're voting on. That's my guess. Any other questions?
Hi, my name is Nancy Beaver, and I've got a question about the cost. You've been talking about the building, the different options, and the one that you really want, right? 3.5 million for the building. What about the operational costs? Like, if you build a bigger building, everything is going to go up. Taxes, insurance, maybe cleaning, everything. So if I'm going to make a vote on these 3 different options, I would like to know the total cost and include the operating costs, or the estimate of the operating costs.
Yeah, that's a tough one to answer, to be honest with you. The difficulty is that we don't know what the tax assessment would be because that's set separately every year. I'm sure that the POA board might be able to come with some kind of estimate. Yes, hang on. I'm going to pass that to Tom.
Okay, 2 big things. I did talk to our insurance provider, told them we were looking at potentially building a $3.5 million building. Our current, the current that we pay for insurance right now on this building is $14,000 a year. They estimate at $3.5 million it would go to 29. Okay. The other thing is the Hideaway, as a property owners association does not pay a property tax. The property tax, the logic is the value of all of our condos either goes up or down based on the value of this property. So the property tax is really collected from all of us individually. If we build a new clubhouse, which increases the values of our condos, and the way they determine that is how condos are selling, then obviously everyone's individual taxes will go up. So that's how that's based. We don't pay a separate property tax bill here.
Okay, so I guess that's the flip side. Yeah, a new clubhouse along with our new golf course may increase the value of our properties. But yes, then when they start selling, I suspect that there's quite a lag in there, maybe 3 to 5 years. It will catch up because we'll be selling units for a higher price. The assessment office will notice that quite readily and apply additional taxes. I guess you get what you pay for.
Well, the flip side of that is obviously our income maintenance costs. Hopefully we will.
Yeah, the other question asked back here about operating costs. One of the things that will happen is that we won't be spending money on repairs. The annual maintenance costs in this building are quite significant. I don't have a number for you right now, but they are significant, and I've been advised by the POA board that with the new building under warranty and new materials and so on, we won't need nearly as much money for ongoing maintenance.
So I don't think the question really has been answered though about the operating costs. I mean, I've been in banking for 35 years in construction, been involved in construction projects, and you always had to put together a potential proposed cost. It would stand to reason that not only would all of those other costs increase, but we're starting, if I've added correctly, I think we're looking at 246 as a seating capacity, and that's up if I kept the proper notes from last meeting, 160, which is current capacity now. So that in itself would lead us to believe that operating costs in terms of the wages and staffing to serve that many more people would increase. So I think for me, I definitely want to know what that is. And I guess my other question that I have in regards to the seating is with the significant increase in the numbers, how do we know that that's the right amount of seating when, like, do we have some sort of a schedule that says this is what our seating capacity has been, over the last number of years? Is it at 50% or 70% or 100%?
Thank you. The first part, the POA may be able to put together some numbers. However, increased staff for a larger restaurant hopefully means more attendance and increased revenue. So it could be somewhat offset there. The costs would be for insurance, lowered costs for maintenance, so those hopefully would offset to some degree. I don't know how you calculate exactly what that would be. Some historical data may be available. The POA will have to address that issue. The second part of your question was dealing with capacity. And as I said in my talk, we did consult with the management staff here to see how much space. Now, part of the, can you put up the floor plan again, please? Part of the reason for an increase is that we're double using this space here, because that's a separate meeting room and card room in the other end that we don't use for dining. So that's kind of one of the reasons for their significant increase in the restaurant capacity. It's not the only one. This is all larger, and more seats around a larger bar as well. So yes, now there is no real solid empirical data that we could draw on, but we did consult with staff, and my wife and I like to dance a lot, so we're here for most of the big parties, and currently the dance floor is too small. I was just here the other night at an event that had dining and dancing, and there was only 80 people in attendance, and we couldn't get everybody up here that wanted to be up here to dance. So we've made allowances for that. We've made a bigger dance floor. We've made more capacity, but we've tried to make it more functional. The other issue is that on Monday night, for example, they want to be playing bingo in here. We want to have happy hour in here. And they're always trying to rush us out of here so that these people have peace and quiet for their bingo. Well, with that divider, we don't have to worry about that. We can still have a big long party with lots of seats in here, and we're going to have a separate event or party over here as well. So we've tried to design flexibility in here and increase the capacity. The other thing we looked at was the demographics. Very difficult to talk to with empirical data. Once again, it's lagging. However, we are getting younger and younger people in here, and they want to make more. We had lots of people approach us and tell us they wanted to make more use of this facility. Currently, we have quite a few units who never come into the building, never. I don't want to give you the number because I don't really have it at my fingertips, but the DOA board made a considerable amount of revenue from people who never stepped in here to spend their $120 minimum. We need to have a more attractive clubhouse, we need to have more programs, we need to have a better restaurant activity, we need to have a larger menu, but we can't have a larger menu currently because there's no storage space in the kitchen. There's no holding ovens, there's no preparation space. So it's very difficult to have a bunch of pub food at that end of the building and have some fine dining in here. And we're trying to provide all of that in this current structure, and it just doesn't work. We need more space in the kitchen. We need better equipment in the kitchen. And then Chef Nick can provide us with pub food galore. He can provide us with fine dining at the same time. That was the objective, or part of the objective at least. Are there more questions?
You talked about having extra parking that was required with a bigger building when we renovated. Where is that going to go? And then the other question I had was, typically when you have a project of this size, you get more than one bid. Why was there only one bid?
Oh, that's a very good question, because I failed to tell you that this is just an estimate, okay? Bids have not been sought. This is not a bid. This is a concept plan, that floor plan, and the building, and it will go out to tendering for particularly all the sub-trades. So, bidding, sorry. Canadians use the word tendering, bidding. We will go out for bids. And the other question you had was, oh, parking, yeah. Do we have a, yeah, here. It's difficult to see, but you are allowed